Hello everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my channel, Kalanati. Today I'm going to talk about 3 short books by Wynne Jones for younger readers. Not what I usually talk about on my channel, but you may or may not know this about me. I am a huge Wynne Jones fan. I have been reading her books for 20 years and I'm a completionist. I want to read and own all of the books by her that are currently available, you know? So it was a bit of a pleasant surprise a couple of weeks ago when I was told by some friends that there were some books for kids out there by Jones that I had never heard of and I hadn't read, and I didn't own copies of them. So I went out and I bought these really pretty matching editions of them from Book Depository, and I read them and I thought I would give you some of my quick thoughts on them. These 3 books are a very short novel, Earwig and the Witch, which was published in 2011. Then there is Freaky Families, which includes 2 stories that were previously published. I think this one came out about 2012. And then another collection of 2 stories called Vile Visitors, which contains 2 much older stories, and I think this came out around 2013. All 3 of these, which are the UK editions, are illustrated by Marion Lindsay, and they're very lovely editions. So these books, I'm going to talk about them in order from shortest to longest, but also the ones I liked best to the one I liked the least. So we're starting with Earwig and the Witch. This book is about a little girl named Earwig. She is an orphan and she is raised in an orphanage with her friend Custard, and she really likes living there because she gets whatever she wants. She's got like all the adults wrapped around her little finger. And then one day 2 strange adults appear at the orphanage and they want to take her home. They do, and clearly the woman is a witch and the man is maybe a demon. He's definitely got horns. And the witch tells her that they don't really want to adopt her. The witch just wants a second pair of hands. So Earwig is forced to be her assistant, and despite trying to make a deal with the witch to learn magic, the witch really isn't holding up her end of the bargain. So Earwig basically turns her mind to figuring out how to manipulate the adults and get what she wants. She doesn't want to be the assistant doing all the grunt work. She actually wants to learn magic, and she wants to get what she wants from the adults. I thought this was a really fun story. I really liked it. The adult portion of my brain is saying, you know, there's this message in here about children manipulating adults, which maybe isn't the best thing, but I would never really have noticed that when I was reading it as a kid, so whatever. What I really liked about this is that Earwig is brave. She's very courageous. She really is clever, and she looks at her situation and she figures a way out of it. She's not scared and helpless. And kind of the theme with all of the stories I'm about to talk about is really about kids against adults, and it's fun. So Earwig and the Witch is definitely my favorite of these 3. Next up is Freaky Families, and the 2 stories included in this are The 4 Grannies from 1980 and Aunt Bee's Day Out from 2004. So both of these stories are about the children in families dealing with difficult, overbearing adults, pretty much. So The 4 Grannies was very entertaining in my opinion. It's about 2 children, a boy and a girl. Their parents need to go to a conference in Scotland for a couple of days, so they call up the 4 grannies one by one and ask them to come stay with the children. The grannies initially say, no, we can't do that, and then one by one they all show up pretty much unannounced to take care of the children. And the kids are not super pleased about this. Particularly the little boy, who is running around the house stealing various objects to add into this experimental contraption he's making, and he thinks that this invention of his grants wishes. He wishes for his sister to disappear, and then she does, and then he's frantically trying to improve his invention so he can get his sister back before the grannies notice that she's gone. It's definitely a child kind of manipulating the adults as well. But this one I also very much enjoyed. I liked the character types of the grannies, and then like the super granny aspect. It was fun. This story, however, seemed more dated to me than any of the others. It is the one from 1980, and I think that it came across as more dated because it mentions some things around the house that aren't as normal today as they were, you know, 30, 40 years ago. For example, one of the things that the little boy steals is the vacuum cleaner bag clip, and I was like, as a bag clip? What the heck is that? There actually is an illustration in the book that shows this old-timey vacuum cleaner, and I was like, oh, that's what that is, but they don't make vacuum cleaners like that anymore. So it was enjoyable. The second story in this is quite short. It's called Aunt Bee's Day Out, and it's about a group of children who get pulled off onto their eccentric Aunt Bee's day at the beach. She is large, obnoxious, and overbearing, and she sweeps them off to the beach, and she doesn't want to be where all the people are, so she takes them to this island, which is actually off limits. And then strange things happen to them, and she's oblivious, and the kids are like, what is going on? I also enjoyed this one with one small caveat. The action in this one, it's very classic Diana Wynne Jones magic sort of thing. It doesn't make a ton of sense, but it's really, really fun. The thing that kind of gets to me about the story is the Aunt Bee character, is the fact that she is fat and big and just kind of pushy. It veers into that kind of character that I would almost classify as fat phobic. I've noticed a little bit of this in other works by Jones, so I don't think it's like terrible here, but that conflation between the fat aunt and an obnoxious personality is not my favorite thing. So yeah, the two stories in Freaky Families I enjoyed. They're not my absolute favorites, but they're still good fun. And then we come to Vile Visitors, and this is the collection I have issues with. The two stories in this are Who Got Rid of Angus Flint, which is from 1975, so pretty early on in Jones's career, and then Chairperson from 1989. Both of these stories are about children dealing with unwanted, very unpleasant visitors who just won't leave their house, and the adults are, as usual, absent, ineffective, or absolute cowards. Who Got Rid of Angus Flint? I thought maybe I had read this story before because I recognized the title, but I didn't recognize any of the action in it, so this may have been the first time I ever read it. And it's about, so basically this guy, Angus Flint, his wife leaves him and he invites himself to live with this family to cheer himself up. And when he arrives, he's an utterly awful person. He insults everything about their house. The narrator of the story is one of the kids, and they really dislike it that Angus Flint keeps insulting the furniture because this kid thinks that the furniture has feelings that can be hurt. And he is actually physically abusive towards the kids, which is my problem with this story. I think I would have liked this story if I had read it when I was the target age, you know, for it. But as an adult, all I can think about the story is that Angus is literally physically abusing and hurting the children in the story. He regularly like grabs them by their hair. He lifts them up by their hair and moves them around. And it's described in the story how painful it is. The kids are terrified that he's gonna do that to them again. And so he's literally hurting these kids in front of their parents, and their parents do nothing about it. Oh my gosh. He does other terrible things as well, and everyone's absolutely miserable, and then they finally manage to get rid of him. The way that the story is resolved is also like really classic fun Jones action. It involves the furniture, and I like the way it ended, but I cannot get over this very adult protective reaction of, if somebody hurts your kids, you don't hide behind the newspaper and pray that somebody will find out a solution. You dump this guy's stuff on the lawn, lock the door, and call the cops if he shows up again. Like, protect your kids. So I think it's maybe a little bit of a rougher story. It's obviously from earlier on in Jones's career, and I don't recall actual like violence against kids cropping up in any of her other stories. This just felt a little bit extreme to me and not like her other work. The second story in this collection is Chairperson. I have never liked this story. I have read this story multiple times from when I was a child up until now, and I have never ever liked this story. Once again, it involves a family with kids. They have this really ratty stuffed armchair. It's stained, it's sticky, it's gross. They need to get rid of it. And then it turns into a person, and this absolute slob of a chairperson is a really unwelcome guest in their home. His behavior is really influenced by like all the ads and the television that he watched when he was in an armchair in front of the television. And he's basically like eating them out of house and home and etc. I think I've never liked the story because I think that the chairperson is really gross. There's just something about him that icks me out. I can't think of any other particular reason that I wouldn't like this story. I don't have any complaints about it. I just think it's kind of gross. Once again, I like the way that the story is resolved. And it's the kids figuring things out and the parents literally once again hiding behind newspapers and trying like, we're gonna leave our kids home alone with this thing and pray that they figure it out while we go run errands or whatever. Don't be that kind of adult. Anyway, Chairperson, not my favorite story. I don't have much more to say about that one. So, this is my least favorite out of all three of these because the two stories just, for whatever reason, they irk me. I can't get over some elements of them. That being said, I enjoyed reading all three of these. It was like a blast from the past, just an author that I've always really loved, and it's like coming home to read these stories. They're not my favorite things by Jones for sure, but they resemble what I love from her stories, so that's good. I will say that I have always liked her older middle grade novels and young adult work more than her very young stories and her short fiction. Some of these stories, of course, are quite good, but I really gravitate more towards the ones for older readers. So yeah, if you're curious, I have talked a little bit more about Diana Wynne Jones's work in the past. I've done a video on some of the Chrestomanci novels, which is a series that she's probably best known for, that and Howl's Moving Castle. I've also done a review of one of her very, very few adult novels, Deep Secret, which is probably my favorite thing by Diana Wynne Jones. So I will link this for you if you want to know more of my thoughts on her work. But otherwise, let me know if you have read these three short little books and what you thought of them. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.